Hello, if you haven't subscribed to our channel, kindly subscribe to it. Go to our homepage, click on the subscribe button and stay updated. England's 2015 World Cup campaign was cut short with a 9-wicket victory over Afghanistan. It was an unexpectedly early exit for Ian Morgan's men, who himself was appointed as captain at late notice after Alistair Cook was dropped as skipper in the last-minute ECB panic. Morgan's England had already been eliminated after losses to Australia, New Zealand, Sri Lanka and Bangladesh in the group stages, and the win over Afghan team was not of any importance. Today, it may seem unrealistic, but back in 2015, England was a below-average ODI side, which makes their rise to the very top even more interesting. At the 2015 World Cup, England had a multitude of issues. Several players played the 90s brand of ODI cricket. There was also a lack of clear approach for winning games, and a pathological fear of being dismissed while batting was clearly evident as well. In essence, England simply took their test side and threw in a handful of white ball specialists without giving these players the right environment to flourish. For instance, Moeen Ali's attacking game that saw him register a strike rate of 105 across the tournament was neutralized by the ponderous approach of his opening partner Ian Bell, who soaked up ball after ball in the tournament whilst scoring only 77 runs per 100 balls. England also frequently fielded out an attack of Anderson, Broad, Vokes and Finn that featured 4 bowlers far more suited to the new red ball than the white one. In the aftermath of their disastrous World Cup campaign that lacked both results and any coherent form of salient planning, it was left to Captain Morgan and Director of Cricket Andrew Strauss to pull England out of this hole. The most important thing Morgan and Strauss did was to decide on a DNA for their team, a mode of playing that aims to win games in a certain process. What England settled on and have persisted up to date is an approach that involved one anchoring batter, that is Joe Root in ODIs, 6 hyper-aggressive batters, and then at least 2 to 3 bowlers capable of batting a bit if the high-variance batting strategy caused a collapse. England essentially bet that in the modern age, the occasional embarrassing-looking batting collapse wasn't much of a price to pay if it gives you the chance of scoring 300 plus frequently, especially given that conservatively compiled scores of 230 are hardly any better than the 160 all-out. This style was, ironically, premised on the McCullum-era New Zealand ODI side and its positive approach of cricket. In this new English setup, Joe Root, Ben Stokes, Ian Morgan and Buttler became the backbone of batting lineup that would surround itself with the likes of Roy, Hales, Billings, Moeen Ali and Vince, players that would attack from the ball one. As well as bolstering their batting, England made subtle changes in bowling department as well. They started picking bowlers for particular roles. Gone were the days of 4 new ball bowlers, and it was the age of Liam Plunkett being selected to bowl between overs 10 to 40 with his back-of-the-length cross-seamers, and Adil Rashid being offered unwavering faith because statistics showed that a good leg spinner was an essential part of a strong white ball side. In essence, England abandoned a player-by-player selection process for a structure that slid players into pre-agreed roles. The hard-hitting opener, the finisher, the death bowler, to name just a few. It could be said that England moved away from a process based upon their performances in domestic cricket to one based on pragmatism. There is perhaps no clearer example of this than the continued non-selection of Warwickshire County Cricket Club's Sam Hain for England. Hain has the highest list A batting average of all time, but has a strike rate that is not deemed high enough to fit with England's philosophy. Ian Morgan possessed absolute confidence in his plans and the players he has selected to carry them out, and was willing to ignore individual losses if the team was winning the majority of the matches and playing in the right manner. Morgan's England is then the opposite of today's Sri Lanka side, who change their plans and players seemingly after each loss. In the 2019 World Cup, despite their misuse or non-selection in the 2015 World Cup, the likes of Hales, Roy, Bairstow, Buttler, Vince and Billings were already playing fearless cricket with the bat in domestic cricket, perhaps as a result of being brought up on T20 and 40 over cricket. To an extent, then England responded to the resources they had, and by doing so set the blueprint that younger players such as Tom Banton and Phil Salt knew they must follow to be selected for England's white ball career. The emergence of a global superstar Jofra Archer was not a product of the English but the West Indian cricketing system, and upon moving to the UK, forged a franchisee career for himself that included taking the IPL by storm. Archer, who came into the England squad into the summer of 2019, was presented to England as a ready-made elite bowler who could tie down 5 overs in the power play and 5 at the death. What England should be given credit for, however, is being ruthless enough to drop David Willey, a player who had given so much to England over a 4-year period. For Archer, a far superior player right at the last minute. Willey was left justifiably upset. The rest of the England squad ended up being very happy. England's 2019 success then relied on a mixture of the single-minded pursuit of a well-thought-out plan and taking off their luck. With the T20 World Cup looming around and the game continuing to evolve and change, only time will tell whether either of these elements come to abandon England in the future.